We are so excited to have with us Prompt, or how AI can help tackle disinformation. This presentation is going to be by two speakers of Opsci.ai, Clément Bénesse and Martin Lestra. And I'm going to introduce our two speakers for today. They will go on for about, well, 30 minutes or so. If you want to make it shorter, that's great too, so that we have more time for the discussion. And as always, feel free to raise your virtual hand later for the discussion, or you can also, even while we are have the presentation, you can already type your questions in the chat. This meeting will be recorded, and also, as usual, there won't be any AI tools used for note-taking for this kind of framework to make everybody feel comfortable about information that is being shared afterwards. So we are so excited to have Clément and Martin with us. So Clément is currently leading the research department as Opsci.ai. Is it Opsci or is it Opsci? What's the proper way to pronounce your organization, Clément?
Say Opsci.
Opsci. Thank you for correcting me. Opsci.ai. And Clément holds a doctorate in mathematics from the University of Toulouse, specializing in sensitivity analysis and algorithmic fairness. He was a postdoc at the Computer Science Laboratory at the Université du Québec à Montréal, and also the Law Laboratory at the University of Ottawa, developing expertise in responsible artificial intelligence. And Martin is the coordinator of an EU-funded pilot project called Prompt, which both of you will now introduce to us. And Martin holds a PhD in political science from the European University Institute. He has led several international cooperation projects at the intersection between data and public policy at the OECD, the University of Toulouse 3, and in the private sector. So without further ado, now over to you.
Hi, thanks, Daniela, Chris, Rada, Aneta, and thanks for the introduction. Just to start with a disclaimer to complement my biography is that I currently have a strong flu, and so if I am delighted to be here, but if I don't sound very delighted, it's because of the flu. And if there's any problem with my internet connection, Clément will also take over. So between the two of us, we'll get through this presentation. And thanks again for having us. We're delighted to be here. So I'll start. I'll share my screen. Up. So I'll give a few kind of introductory remarks about the context in which the project we're going to talk about is taking place. And then Clément will take over to run you through some of the main features, the AI features of the tools that we've developed to try and support activists and journalists in tackling disinformation. So the overall, of course, discussion today is about AI disinformation, and we'll kind of explore this through the lenses of this project. So the project is called Prompt, Predictive Research on Misinformation and Propagation Trajectories. And at Opsci.ai, we're coordinating this project. The context is one that I'll go through very quickly, context of post-truth, mistrust of the media, science. And what we're interested in at Opsci in particular is the role played by destabilizing agents, foreign powers, of course, but also domestic agents who try to mobilize different narratives to, of course, increase polarization, undermine trust in science, media, etc. So this context, plus geopolitical mayhem, which we focus on also in Prompt because we work on the war of aggression against Ukraine. And this results into a largely corrupt narrative markets. So lots of falsehoods circulating online, but it's not just about fake news. It's really about big stories that we call narratives that try to, as I mentioned, undermine trust in governments, in media, etc. And these have a very large impact. And we study this in the context of prompt, because prompt is really the European Narrative Observatory funded by the European Commission to study exactly that, the state of disinformation narratives in the EU digital space. So just some context, I think it's interesting because right now there are a lot of things happening at the EU level. And this might be interesting to you as also people working on EU projects and building projects on disinformation. What we see right now happening in this landscape is that we are more and more moving from analysis to action. Funding, there's been a lot of funding to analyze, dissect disinformation, to raise awareness, to also media literacy. More and more, the funding is shifting to more operational research and development, which we're trying to do in this project, by the way. Action, resilience, building societal resilience, which is one of the pillars of the last European Democratic Shield, which I'll mention afterwards, but also an idea that we need to pool resources. EU funding has been quite fragmented over the past years, many different things funded. Our project is a very small envelope within a specific DG of the European Commission. And today, the European Commission is trying to pull all of this together. They have an ecosystem. The EU has an ecosystem. This, I'm sorry, is in French, but I haven't found it in English. Basically, telling you what the EU main actions are, including understanding, reinforcing societal resilience, and regulating the internet. And we work specifically with the team here on the right-hand side on the code of conduct on disinformation. So all of this ecosystem is being reinforced now by the European Commission under the so-called European Democratic Shield, which is giving new momentum to the fight against disinformation. It's still unclear how this shield will be implemented and operationalized, and we're following this conversation. But basically, it's structured around different pillars to continue doing analysis, to continue building societal resilience, and also to try and pool resources in the forthcoming Democratic Resilience Center, which will be built. So Prompt is just one of many, many projects that you can see here. Bigger projects working on different dimensions of disinformation, and we focus on narratives. Our understanding of disinformation is that we have to go beyond the true and false dichotomy towards a more nuanced understanding of what's being said. And so we are developing through this project a disinformation detection and dissection arsenal, which focuses on narratives. We are the second edition of the European Narrative Observatory, which was launched in 2022 following the pandemic. The first edition was named Nodes, and it focused on COVID-19, of course, migration and climate change. And we took over in September 2024 with 10 other partners. And we are working on 6 countries. So France, Italy, the 3 Baltic states, and Romania, in 8 languages. You just have to add English and Russian to those languages, main languages spoken in these countries, and 3 topics that have already been chosen by the Commission. So war in Ukraine, LGBTQI+, and elections in the EU. And I'll tell you more about this. And finally, we're working across 8 platforms. This is very difficult, but I think the team at the Hurley School knows this better than we do, accessing data. But one of the specificities of our project is you can see at the right-hand side that we work also on Wikipedia, and we'll get back to this. This is our consortium, journalists and fact-checkers, media experts, let's say the geeks, working on semantics and on modeling. We also have Wikimedia France in this consortium, which is a very large online platform in the understanding of the Digital Services Act. And we also work on outreach and Stratcom. So FYI, we've just been selected for the 3rd call of this Narrative Observatory, which is also, for me, a way to say that if you're interested in this project, we can also continue talking about it later, because we'll be working on this for 18 more months. And the idea of this next project is that we do what we do in prompt, but much bigger, working not 3 topics, but on many topics, and that we continue using AI in a very targeted way. Clément will explain this much better than me, but this is basically the idea. What we do, but bigger, more operational, and still with AI. Clément, maybe I hand over to you to talk about the prompt engineering.
Great, thanks. So here I will explain to you how we work about tackling disinformation. And don't be afraid by this diagram, because we will explain some parts and the whole scheme. So it all starts on the left-hand side with data collection, because you cannot analyze disinformation on social media if you don't collect any data on social media. And for that aspect, we have our 8 platforms, and we use some specific queries in order to scrap the data. And you'll see that under these queries is narratives and claims matrix, and we will get back to this aspect right after. Once we have our raw material, what we need to do is to filter it in order to extract what I call the wheat from the chaff. That is what is about disinformation, from what is only the score from the yesterday match of soccer, on which we don't really focus in this project. In order to do this filtering part, we have multiple tools to do it, but we mostly rely on embedding models, which are a way to make understand to a computer what is semantics and what is similar as a text from a semantic point of view between two pieces of content. And that's the tool we will leverage in order to do our first really large-scale filtering. What is not interesting to us can still be interesting nonetheless through outlier detections, and we have specific parts of the pipeline who are relying on this for mainly 2 reasons, because it allows us to still work on coordination, and maybe I will talk a little bit more about this after. And it also helps us to catch what are new topics, emerging subjects for disinformation. And then in the wheat, we have 2 main aspects. What I would call macro level insights, which are on the scale of the whole corpus, the whole collection of documents, and micro agents, or we call them agents, but it's mostly insights, which are at the document level. Maybe we can go to the next slide. The prompt project is mostly focused on 3 types of analysis of prisms in order to understand disinformation. The first one is narratives, so what we call narratology. And for this, we are really using NLP pipeline with BERT-based classifiers, embedding models, LLMs, and we want to be able to swap the models in order to make sure that we use exactly the right amount of compute and the best ones at each part. And this is also linked with our matrix I talked about earlier, because on our 3 topics, we developed a qualitative matrix of narratives and usual disinformation that are invariant through time, and with variations that can be specified to a given context. The second big pillar is about persuasion techniques and rhetorics. So if the first one is what people are talking about, the second one is how people are talking about it. And for this, we developed a taxonomy with fact-checkers, journalists, and academics in order to make sure that we are able to capture as much as possible. And we also have this LLM annotation that can help us automate some part and provide for analysts more insights at scale. And the final pillar would be coordination and inauthentic behavior. And this one is less based about NLP, but more about how people interact with each other on social media. And we refine some algorithms developed by the University of Urbino on this specific topic. And if some people are interested, you can hit me up about these final approaches that I would like to develop with stochastic processes. If anyone knows about this, I would be interested to talk about it. Next slide. In the next slides, I will present to you really some sneak peeks into what we are developing. And Martin will do a back and forth with what is actually on the dashboard on the front. And the main part, the first part would be the narrative tracker, which is exactly tracking among the topics that we are focusing on at the scale of really a collection of social media content, whether it's talking about a given narrative, and it's really the cornerstone of the whole project. So here you can see Martin showing you some clusters about the narrative clusters, and yeah, you can just navigate that way. The second part is about the rhetorics and persuasion techniques. So Martin provided to use a link to the taxonomy, and I think we can go straight to the platform so you can see how it goes. So if you go at the level of one given piece of content, you can pick whichever you want. And okay, maybe not this one. I think this one was too short for us to have really a rhetoric analysis. But it's automatically providing you a small synthesis about what is happening in the text. What is interesting is that it allows us to provide for analysts that are speaking one language to see how it goes for other languages, and also to provide to them some unified framework. And of course, they can realize that it's an hyperbole, but it lowers the amount of effort they need to do for this task. And I think the final really technical thing that I will present that is on the front also is what we call the metafake. It's really boiling back from this consideration that a lot of things have already been done on disinformation. A lot of material are out there, and we need to have a common place in which we can pull every insights, advice about this given narrative, and so on and so forth. And for this, we use the EU versus Disinfo database, but we can also use any database because we are only working with similarity, so we are really database agnostic. And for a given piece of content, we say, okay, these are the closest that we find with this type of architecture and method, the closest documents that are already debunked, so that as an analyst or a journalist, you can go straight to the debunk and, again, lowering the amount of effort for them. And I think I can give you back the speech totem, Martin.
Yeah, thanks. So moving on to another feature that's very important for prompt. We're very interested in working on knowledge commons and the information integrity on these knowledge commons. And one of the uniqueness of this project is that we work on Wikipedia. As you know, Wikipedia is at the core of the information space. It's under attack. And what happens on Wikipedia is not only about Wikipedia, because information that is changed in Wikipedia will be found in the answers that someone will consult on ChatGPT or other tools. So it's very important that we work on this. To try and track and point to Wikimedians where information manipulation might take place, we built this tool called the Wikipedia Sensitivity Meter that works across 3 categories. One is heat, so we look at whether there's unusual activity going on certain pages. We look at the quality of pages. Are they missing sources, for example? So if they're missing sources, if there's only one source behind the page, this makes it more vulnerable to information manipulation. And behavior. Is there any suspect behavior or suspicious people, users working on the page, for example, known sock puppets, etc.? So we built this tool. We built it in a way that you can try it on specific pages. So you can analyze from 1 to like 10,000 pages, basically, with using 2 different interfaces, one of which is this one, which we call the barometer. And here we collect large data sets of Wikipedia pages, and we then show where something specific might be happening. So this was in the case of the Romanian elections. You can, navigate this in different languages, see the global score, identify the pages that have seen the most, that have scored the most on our different metrics, as well as the pages that have seen the largest evolution in the time frame that you've selected. So this is a prototype. We're developing this with the Wikimedia Foundation itself. We've had very positive feedback, but we're looking for more. So here you have the QR code, and we'd be very happy to engage on this. We've had discussions with researchers from other universities at Helsinki, at CMI Norway, to see how we can support their research projects using this tool. So we basically showed you different products, right? I mentioned that Prompt is product-oriented. It's R&D for activists and journalists, etc. So we've shown you different products: the corpus analyzer, the disinfo scanner. Those were both on the same page. Basically, corpus analyzer is analyzing large data sets. Disinfo scanner is if you just want to see what disinformation you might find in a unique post, so just one URL, and the wiki sensitivity meter. Clément also mentioned the metafake. And all of these tools are intended for advanced OSINTers, analysts, journalists, and the general public. We're really it's very important to us that what we develop can be basically used by a wide spectrum of people. So some quick findings just to tell you, when we use these tools, what do we get, right? Because the tools are not an end in themselves. We have issued several narrative reports. There's a QR code again. And just to give you a gist of it, well, we have a chapter in the last report on the Moldovan parliamentary elections written by the Diaspora Initiative, who collaborated with the Prompt project. And basically some findings that, the main narratives in the digital space, looking at several million posts and then filtering them to like around 5,000 posts, where that's Russian proxies were trying to deter people from participating in the electoral process. Second finding is that narratives are often combined. You often find 2 different narratives even in the same social media post. So, for example, mixing things about elite corruption with the economic consequences of the war in Ukraine on Moldova. We also see that a lot of emotional triggers, emotional language are central to this information. For example, name calling in this data set represented 1 out of 5 posts. Hyperbole is also found in 1 out of 5 posts. So, I mean, this confirms like findings in the rest of literature that emotions can be very central to this information. On Wikipedia, that's the second column, we see that there are indications. I mean, evidence would be a strong word, and we need to double check every time, including with the foundation, but indications of revisionist strategies, basically people going on historical pages and trying to amend without substantial sources, without sources at all sometimes, things that pertain to Moldova's history. And this is all the more suspicious when these people act under a hidden identity. So we detected some sub-puppeting in these cases. And we also identified some problematic sources. So looking at the domain names that are used as sources at the bottom of the Wikitip page. And we saw that these sources, well, they were kind of fake media, you know, or problematic websites that Moldovan analysts know are prone to share disinformation. So all of this in the narrative report, if you're interested. Clément, back to you for the last 2 slides, I think.
Yeah, sure. So as Martin said, we are also preparing actually the next iteration of this project, which is called Spine, so Beyond Prompt Spine. And this slide is mostly what do we want to focus on, given the thing we already have right now. And what is really important to us is how do we, contribute to the integrity of the informational space. And for us, it's really necessary to have some kind of interoperability between what we are developing and what other people are developing. And it can be from really theoretical backgrounds. How do we share data sets? How do we contribute to pipelines, models at academical level, but also at European level through the Democracy Shield, if it needs be. But also which language do we use in order to provide informations? So some people may know about Opsci.ai, Sticks, Disarm, which are some different taxonomies in order to provide information about disinformation. And it's really important to us to contribute to this ecosystem and to make sure that what we are creating and providing can be used by everyone. And so if you have any ideas or constraints about how you would like to receive some data and how you can share some data, that are some discussions that we are really keen to have. And also, in our view, we cannot talk about integrity of the information space without talking about Wikipedia and how it's under attack right now, because it's one of, as we said, sanctuary and digital commons that is really useful for the civil society. So how can we carry on helping them? And one topic to really give you a specific example, one topic that we are really interested in is how do we lower the patrolling fatigue? So people who are going from subject to subject, how do we make sure that they can do their work easily and reduce boilerplate? The second aspect is about elections. And so how do we make sure that what we are creating for 6 countries and 8 languages can be made broader and have better analysis and go faster, so that when you have a given election that's popping at some point somewhere in Europe, people can use the tool and have additional information, because it's an asymmetric fight, since elections are only once in a given time frame, but disinformation actors can prepare the landscape every day between elections. And that leads us to the final aspect, which is societal resilience. And we want to provide tools that are easy to use. So if you have any comment about UX, UI, if you think that we are presenting some aspects in a way that is not efficient or anything like this, please tell us. Because what we aim for is for everyone to be able to have some basic knowledge about informational warfare. And it can be through OSINT, more or less OSINT formations through our tool. So we are not saying that if you use our tool, you will be able to do any OSINT task, but it can help you to do some stuff. And we also want to prepare people, and this goes through an emphasis on very, very serious games in order to make things palpable, for people to use these tools and to understand what is happening. And yeah, in one sentence is, how do we make an industry out of this? Because on the other side, it is an industry to create disinformation. So how do we create a defense industry on this aspect? And yeah, final slide would be the conclusion. I will just say it as a tech guy, there is no magic AI wand. You can only be as good as your discussions with experts. You need to be able to talk with anyone who is interested in the topic to understand what they want, to keep a human in the loop. We don't want to analyze everything. We want to analyze what is actionable and representative of the society, because otherwise, as I said, in this kind of industrial mindset, the costs are really prohibitive. And once you talk with fact checkers and they tell you that money is scarce and fundings are uncertain, then you need to focus on what is the most bang for your buck, so to speak. And the final aspect is interoperability again.